In the last video, I talked about the Lions' free agent acquisitions of Halapoulivaati Vaitai, Jamie Collins, and Nick Williams. In this one, I'm going to talk about the ones that I haven't talked about yet, which are Desmond Trufant, Duron Harmon, Danny Shelton, and Chase Daniel. Also, I'd like to note that in my last video, I said that Vaitai was signed to a 5-year $50 million deal, but it ended up being a 5-year $45 million deal. So what do I think of Chase Daniel, Desmond Trufant, Duron Harmon, and Danny Shelton? I feel like these moves were more for depth, honestly, than anything, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. I don't really have any problems with any of these moves, except for one, and that's Chase Daniel, but we'll get to that shortly. So yeah, let's break this down a little bit. We'll start off with Desmond Trufant, who has agreed to terms with a 2-year, $21 million deal. That's an okay contract, honestly. I don't know how you all feel about it. I mean, honestly, it's not that high when you compare him to other corners. If I listed something in the top 21 or top 11 or top anything, then that means Trufant is tied with multiple players in that particular stat. And if it just is 8th, or if it just has a singular ranking, then that means that he was the only player that put up that number in that particular stat. So from 2013 to 2019, among all cornerbacks, Desmond Trufant has 13 interceptions, which puts him top 21, 79 passes defended, which puts him 8th, 5 sacks, which, I mean, he's a corner, so you probably don't expect sacks from him, but he was top 11 among cornerbacks with 5 sacks. And he had 7 fumble recoveries, which puts him top 6 among cornerbacks. And if we include all defensive backs, Trufant is top 41 in interceptions, 8th in passes defended, top 30 in sacks, and top 13 in fumble recoveries. And it's also worth noting that he did have 2 defensive touchdowns. So it's a fine signing. However, I found some interesting information. Now, this isn't a film study, so I can't say what's up with this, but for the Falcons with Trufant, in 96 games, they gave up 25 points per game. And in 13 games without Trufant, the Falcons gave up 22.2 points per game. Now, I should note that for the games with Trufant, I excluded the game if he played less than 40% of the defensive snaps. And I included the games where he did play less than 40% of the defensive snaps in the games without Trufant. So what does this mean? Because from a scoring perspective, the Falcons' defense appears to have been better without him. Does this mean that the Falcons' defense was better without Trufant? If I'm going to give my honest opinion, I do not know. We have a 13-game sample size versus a 96-game sample size. So, in all honesty, I don't know what this means. But I thought this information was certainly interesting enough to go ahead and put it in this video. Duron Harmon was not actually a signing, but it was a trade. So, it appears that the Lions will be getting a 1-year rental, if I had to make a guess on what the future with the Lions holds with Harmon. As of right now, we got him for 1 year and a $4,250,000 cap hit. So again, if I listed anything as top, then that means Harmon was tied with multiple players in that particular stat. And if it says a singular ranking, then that means he was alone in that particular stat. But he was tied with multiple players with every stat I'm going to be going over. So that doesn't really matter on this slide. From 2013 to 2019, among safeties, Harmon has 17 interceptions, which puts him top 9, 28 passes defended, which puts him top 45. And then among all defensive backs, he is top 19 in interceptions and only top 140 in passes defended. So this was probably more of a depth move, honestly, especially when you look at his snap count by year. Goes from 37% to 26 to 55 to 49 to 66 to 61 to 65. So Harmon in his career has never played more than 70% of the defensive snaps. He didn't even start playing over 60% of the defensive snaps until 2017. So I'm pretty okay with having Harmon on the team, honestly. He certainly has value as a player. I'm perfectly fine with trading for him. I'm sure a lot of you guys at this point are just sick of getting Patriots. But if they fit the system, and if Matt Patricia and Bob Quinn are most comfortable with getting said player, then they should just get said player. Speaking of Patriots, next up we got Danny Shelton, who the Lions have agreed to terms with for a 2-year, $8 million deal. Again, just probably another depth move. From 2015 to 2019, among all defensive linemen, Shelton is 30th in combined tackles with 210. He is 58th among defensive linemen with 111 solo tackles, and then the 14 tackles for loss wasn't even worth ranking, and neither were the 4.5 sacks. Shelton has only taken over 60% of the defensive snaps one time in his entire career, and that was in 2016. But with that said, he definitely has value as a player. I think pretty much every player we've gotten so far has value. Whether you like that the Lions keep signing former Patriots or not is a different discussion. Shelton, Collins, even Harmon, they all have value as players. I believe all three of them improve this football team. How much do they improve the football team? We'll find out when the season starts and when the season ends. Now I finally get to talk about my least favorite signing, and that's Chase Daniel. 3 years, $13,050,000. The only good thing, if you can even consider it a good thing, is that he only counts for $2 million on the cap for this coming season. But that's where I officially part ways, because that's $2 million that's not going to be spent on the offensive line, the defense, running game, or pretty much anything. I mean, I guess the reason I hate this move so much is because we need a defense and an offensive line, and we need a running game. Chase Daniel does not improve that. Supporting cast matters. Quarterbacks that win have good supporting casts. If Stafford had a good supporting cast, then our backups could have won some games. But the supporting cast around the quarterback in 2019 was not good enough. The quarterback contributes to winning, but the team wins games and the team loses games. Even if we just take a look at 4 notable games that he played in. Look at the wins. 6 points allowed and 16 points allowed. He didn't really win the game that much. I mean, I guess he kind of won the game since he was on the team. But man, if we don't get the defensive running game fixed, then that means the season is a wash. If Stafford goes down, the season, you can almost flush it down the toilet if we don't get a defense or a running game or improve the offensive line. Chase Daniel is not going to save the season if Stafford gets hurt again. He's not. There's no evidence that that is going to happen. He didn't save the Bears season, and he barely even won the games that he played. I mean, when he played against the Lions, it was the defense that made the game-winning play against us. It was Eddie Jackson who made the game-winning play, not him. Against Minnesota with Kirk Cousins, did he win that game or did the defense win the game? 6 points, 6 sacks. Who won that game? Who was the most responsible for winning that game? I mean, if you want to just argue, yeah, he's a winner, then I don't know what to tell you. This signing just kind of baffles me, if I gotta be honest. He's not going to save the season in any way, shape, or form. Of all the acquisitions the Lions have made so far, Chase Daniel improves the team the least. I'm fully aware that the Lions did not win a game without Stafford, but that's irrelevant because we wouldn't have won a game if we had Chase Daniel either. We would have won games if we had a good team, but we did not have a good team last year. If you put a good team around a quarterback, he's going to look like a winner. But if you put a bad team around a quarterback, he's going to look like a loser. In my opinion, we need to improve the team more than we need to improve the backup quarterback situation. So I spent all that time talking about how I do not like the Chase Daniel signing, but I don't want to sound like I dislike what the Lions have done so far, because I really do think they've done a pretty decent job. They haven't gotten the biggest names, but they've improved the team. I really believe that. the team is better now than it was in 2019. Now, I'm sure plenty of you are going to disagree with my take on Chase Daniel, but it's how I feel. If we have a good team, we're going to win games no matter who the quarterback is. But if we have a bad team, we're not going to win. I always like to improve the team around the quarterback. Then the quarterback will look better that way. But overall, I think the Lions are doing a pretty decent job so far. They've added depth, and the team is better right now, I think. But we won't know until the season starts. And remember, the key isn't always more money. The key is smart money. And whether these signings are smart is yet to be determined. So I made it pretty clear on what my least favorite acquisition was of the ones that I broke down. But my favorite acquisition of the ones I broke down in this goes probably Harmon, then Shelton, then Trufant, and then Daniel. I mean, if Stafford goes down and Daniel leads us on a huge run, then I'll have to eat crow. But if we go on a big run, it's gonna be because of Stafford in all likelihood, not because of Chase Daniel. Now, the Lions have made some questionable moves, but there's plenty of people that have already talked about that, like cutting Kennard and such. The one thing that I don't like that they've done so far is that we rank kind of high when it comes to having a lot of dead money. So that could certainly use some improvement. But yeah, what do you guys think of what the Lions have done so far? Love it, like it, hate it, or are you somewhere in between? That'll be it for this video. Thank you for watching.